I never felt good enough. I never felt qualified enough for much of my life, up until very recently, I would say. 7 marathons, 7 continents, 7 days wasn't enough. Marathon des Sables twice wasn't enough. North Pole Marathon 3 times wasn't enough. The Tour de France, I cycled the Tour de France, wasn't enough. I have felt like a fraud in the past many, many times. Just think, well, I'm just a guy I've been lucky enough. I've had the adventure, I've paid the money and I've done the adventure, not given myself any credit for it, and it's never been enough. And it actually took me to complete the second Atlantic row halfway through the second Atlantic row before I finally twigged and went, what are you doing? What are you trying to prove to who?
Hello and welcome. Your host, Kate Champion here. Are you honoring your inner adventurer? Today, we are exploring that question in a powerful conversation with Ted Jackson, endurance athlete, director of the North Pole Marathon, and philanthropist known for his passion for extreme adventure. Ted has run 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. He's rowed across the Atlantic Ocean twice. He's crossed the deserts of Chile, raced through the streets of Sydney, and raised significant awareness for muscular sclerosis. But despite these incredible achievements, Ted has struggled to feel that he was truly enough. His journey through addiction, self-reflection, and healing eventually helped him realize that adventure isn't just about the challenge, it's about growth, resilience, and stepping outside our comfort zones. This conversation reminds us of the importance of pushing ourselves, embracing discomfort, and recognizing that the spirit of adventure is deeply wired into us all. I really hope this conversation will spark something in you too. On a personal note, things are shifting a little bit in my world. It's summer, which means I am spending more time outdoors, unplugging, and filling my creative cup. So the podcast episodes have been a little sporadic. The best way to connect, get those latest episodes, and hear about events and receive helpful resources now and again is to sign up for the community news. Simply go to katechampionauthor.com. I promise no spam, and you can unsubscribe at any time. One last thing, I want you to really remember, embrace that your time, your energy, and your health are your most valuable resources. So please protect and treasure them. And this podcast is part of my efforts to help you live a longer, stronger, more intentional life. So thank you so much for listening today. I know your time is precious. And here, my friends, is this great conversation with Ted. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome, Ted, to the show today. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so a little bit of a background on Ted. I don't know who reached out. Somebody reached out and said you would be a great guest for the show. And I kind of dug into his social media a little bit. And he has got a really gnarly photo with like his face, big, he's a really hairy guy if you're not looking at this on YouTube. And his face is literally covered in like crystals, ice crystals. It looks terrifyingly freezing, but it's a really great photo. So listeners, I encourage you to check that out. So welcome, Ted. I really want to hear about you today. So how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to, have a chat and let's see where this goes.
Great. So I want to hear about you. I really, people's stories are really powerful, and I really do want to hear about you and what led you to doing what you're doing today, and what led you to doing what you're doing today.
Yeah. I mean, well, I could start at the very beginning. I'm I would say a normal guy from the UK. I was brought up in a very privileged middle-class family in the south of England, good schools, nice family, all the good things. And yeah, relatively little overweight little kid, and who bumbled his way through life, probably finding certain things uncomfortable, other things not. I'm the youngest of 4. I was the baby, and probably had a lot to prove, and probably felt quite a lot of pressure on my shoulders to achieve and was a bit fearful of that, I think, in the early years. And the easiest way to get through that and to gain recognition in my family was to be extremely good at drinking, um, and which I was. I was world champion. I got very good at drinking and various others, and slipped into some bad behaviors. So yeah, drink and drugs was my life, and I kind of went through life living a bit like John Belushi in Animal House. In fact, I that character was a hero of mine when I was growing up. So I don't know if it's if anyone remembers it. It's a certain generation that will remember that movie. But yeah, I my life was a bit like a frat house, a frat house party until it wasn't. And
Yeah.
then and then when it all kind of came crumbling down around me, it was like I had to get sorted out. And I did. I sorted myself out. I went to rehab. I stopped drinking. I stopped taking drugs, and I kind of got my life together. Obviously, there's a lot in between, and then
Sure.
there's
Yeah.
a family, and I met my wife when we were at school, and we had our first child when we were both very young, and continued to do so. We're still together now, through some kind of miracle and a lot of hard work. And yeah, and then my life began really, so since I gave up drink and drugs, which was basically I gave up drinking on my 25th birthday.
Okay.
And then I think it was maybe a year and a half or a year after that I actually went to rehab, because just giving up drinking was just the start. And then then there was plenty more after that. And I actually didn't deal with any of the issues. It was just white knuckling it through life. So yeah. And then since then, I became the rock star that I always wanted to be, that I always thought was going to be handed to me on a plate. And rock star in my own light and in my own world, and it probably sounds quite big-headed to say that, but my dreams came true. And all the dreams that I had before that I just thought were going to happen to me. I always thought, hey, someone's going to spot you. You're going to become a film star. You're going to become a whatever. And it never happened. And I kept on drinking and blah, blah, blah. So yeah. But since then, I would say some pretty rock starry things happened to me in my life. And I've traveled the entire globe on a number of occasions. I've traveled in private jets. I've done all these amazing things. And I'm just Ted, who was just this guy from, chubby little kid from England who has no real qualifications, and is now feeling confident that he is qualified to take on life and to guide it and help others in life.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So I have a couple of questions. I'm just so curious about what was your pivotal, I know there's probably many, but what was the pivotal moment that when you woke up at 25 and said, okay, I'm done, I've got to make a change? What was that?
It was just, I mean, I was a pretty broken man. We had a young child, a young son, Oscar, at the time. And I just kind of got to the stage where I was very, very, very unhappy. And I was lying there kind of weeping on my son's bed, and Sophie gave me an ultimatum, actually, which at the time I resented enormously, which was, she said, I love you, but I don't love your drinking, and I don't love what comes with it. And I think you love me. And so you've got a choice, you either love me or you love drinking, so it's going to have to be one or the other. And I said, that's fine. That's easy. I'll just choose you, which I did. And I immediately stopped drinking. I think that was a few days before my 25th birthday. And I said, well, I'll just have a drink, I'll have a drink on my 25th birthday and that'll be it. And I thought I was going to have a great big old blowout. It never happened. I had about 3 or 4 pints, and it was just, I knew the game was up. It was over. And I'd already had enough in that, as much by the time I was 25 as most people might have in a lifetime anyway. So I'd had a lot of fun. Anyway, I gave up drinking at that stage. I didn't give up everything else. And then, as I said, it took a little while for me to actually get into rehab after that. But yeah, and I was resentful that it was someone else putting an ultimatum on me. I'm now, of course, enormously thankful that started the process. The process didn't get easy until I made the decision and until I did it for myself. And there's a lot of talk about how, it has to be a selfish program, and you have to do it yourself. And there's such a negative bias towards the word selfish that I could not see that as a thing. I thought, well, no, I'm not doing it for me, I'm doing it for other people. It's if I had my choice, I'd still be doing it. It wasn't until I realized that I didn't like me doing it, that I found it easy and that life got better. So the white knuckle ride was tough, but I had to take action for that to start. I wouldn't know that unless I'd been through it.
Yeah. Yeah. So much there. So powerful. I know I work a lot with addiction and lived experience with it. And it isn't an easy road, but there is that person has to want it, right? I mean, you can have all the outside pressure, and that gives you some nudges, right? And nudges you, but until you look in the mirror and said, this is just so fucked up, I can't do this anymore. And you really feel it, like in your body, right? In your body, in your being.
It didn't make a difference to me. It wouldn't make a difference to me if someone had said to me when I was 18, 19, actually people did.
I'm sure they did.
School that said to me, do you think you've got a problem with drink or with alcohol? I'm like, no. Or if I did, I wore that as a badge of honor. I just wasn't ready. And sometimes you got to wait till your time is right. And when my time was right, it was right. And I was a broken man. I hit my rock bottom. But some people's rock bottoms are different places. And I was lucky. I suppose where I got lucky was that maybe I was just into alcohol and drugs quite early on. And I found recovery early on. And maybe cocaine and stuff sped that process up and meant that I didn't have to go through 40 years of alcoholism, to then start trying to work it out, So I'm grateful for that. I've had, my life is, I can't tell you how much I love my life and how incredible it is.
Yeah. And that's what I want to get into now, right? So again, thank you so much for sharing and just opening that door a little bit. But you are this massive adventurer, right? I mean, you have done so much. I mean, you've done 7 marathons on 7 continents. You've done rowing across the Atlantic. I mean, so let's talk about the adventure and the exploring. And share more, please.
I mean, I think initially I got into this. I did my first marathon. I can't remember when. A friend of mine was doing a marathon, and we were having supper around at his house, and he said, "Oh, I've just signed up to do the New York Marathon." And I said, "Oh, how do you do that?" And I think my father had just had a triple bypass operation. My brother had just had a heart attack, and I thought, oh, maybe there's a ticking time bomb here. I probably ought to do something to try and get fit. I was, as I said, I'm a bit of a Clydesdale, I think they say in America. I'm slow and steady and a little bit chunky, and always was. And that was I made that my identity. I try not to so much now, but that's what I did then, and I did like the idea of a challenge, and I liked the idea of doing a marathon, and I thought I would do one marathon and that would be it. So I think it was somewhere around just in the early 2000s. And I signed up to do I'd never done a half marathon. I'd never done a 5K or anything. It was like, right, come on, if you're going to do it, you do it, right? And so I signed up to do the New York Marathon, and that was my first ever experience of doing a marathon. And if anyone, in terms of the majors, it's an awesome place to start. Yeah. It's a mega marathon. The support on the streets is outrageous. I had an amazing experience. Stuff happens to me. I don't know why, but I get stuff that just goes really in my favor. I got to start that marathon at the very front with the fire department of New York holding back the entire course. So my first ever marathon experience was getting a police escort down Manhattan to get to the start line to do this. Because I spoke to someone in the queue when we were registering, and he was a hero from 9/11. And, and we got chatting, we chatted for an hour in the queue, and suddenly I got this whole experience. But you don't get these experiences unless you're open to them. And I kind of I do put myself out there. So, a lot of my adventures have come because I've sought them out and said yes. And quite often I've put myself there and said, I'll do it. And then worked out how that's going to happen later, and got lucky and try to keep my side of the street clean and be friends with people, and you never know what will happen in life. And I realized that at the beginning that was going to be my path to a sort of a life of adventure. I thought I'd do a marathon and that was it. Maybe I liked the attention I got during it. It was a little bit pre-Instagram, but Facebook was probably just starting. Maybe I can't remember.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I'm a bit of a media whore. I like a bit of attention. I like likes. Who doesn't? I try not to be too reliant on them because I see how dangerous that is. But everyone's. But there's a joke amongst a lot of the people I've done a lot of these things with. It's hashtag Ted overcoming shyness. I don't come across as being a particularly shy person. I probably thrive off people more than I like
Mm.
or care to admit. Quite often my demeanor at home is the grumpy old dad who doesn't like meeting people. And I'm an introverted extrovert. I don't know
Yeah,
if that makes sense. I'm not
totally.
really into psychology. I have a social battery that is really strong when it's working, and then when it's gone, and I've decided it's gone. And I need my time away and my space.
Yeah.
I go away and recharge. And then there's a dangerous period where I can slip into this. I'm all right on my own and I don't need other people to feed off and all that. And I can slip and slip and slip. And that's a dangerous zone for me. And actually, the best zone is when I'm with people, interacting with people, and actually doing what I do. And my job now is, if you had to describe my perfect job, it's become the job I do now. And I have no, and there's just nothing that would come close. And I had a great job. I worked in a family-run boarding school for 20 years, more than 20 years, and worked as a housemaster. I had 50 students, lived in my house. I was responsible for them. I was a bit of a poacher turned gamekeeper. I was quite good at working with the naughty ones to try and inspire them and show them there was another way, or at least if they were going to do it a bit more cleverly. Have a bit of charm about yourself. If there were people who are lacking charm, maybe teach them some charm and how to get through in life. And because that I can only tell people how I've done it, and that's it. I don't profess to be. I never felt good enough. I never felt qualified enough for much of my life up until very recently, I would say. So, 7 marathons, 7 continents, 7 days wasn't enough. Marathon des Sables twice wasn't enough. North Pole Marathon 3 times wasn't enough. The Tour de France, I cycled the Tour de France, wasn't enough. Was good for short term. Did I ever feel qualified? You say, "Oh, you're this great big adventurer. You're an adventurer." Yeah, I feel like a fraud, or I have felt like a fraud in the past, many, many times. Just think, well, I'm just a guy I've been lucky enough. I've had the adventure, I've paid the money, and I've done the adventure, not given myself any credit for it, and it's never been enough. And it actually took me to complete the second Atlantic row halfway through the second Atlantic row, before I finally twigged and went, "What are you doing? Who are you trying to prove to who? What are you trying to prove to who at the moment in life by doing all these things?"
Mhm.
And it was very clear that I was just trying to prove it to myself, and that I had zero concept of what it looked like to people from the outside. I had a very superficial view of what these things look like from the outside. I had a view people thought, "Hey, wow, that's amazing, you're great," and that they had a very glancing idea of, "Yay, well done, Ted," but were they really inspired by it or anything like that? No, I had no concept of that. I probably got more concept now that people are inspired by what I do, and that people am inspired by me and my actions, but also I can inspire people when I speak to people. And I don't like talking because it's not because maybe because I'm English, and because I've got I don't have that big outward. I don't know whether it's a self-worth thing. I'm not sure. I'm uncomfortable talking about me being inspirational. I find that very difficult because that goes against everything I was taught as a kid.
Mm.
Like, hold back, don't push yourself to the front, don't big yourself up, don't sell
Yeah.
this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I took a lot of that to heart. And although people wouldn't necessarily believe that from the way I speak and when I talk to people, because I also do a lot of irony and will say the words that say I'm a hero and I'm a mega thing, but I'm normally doing it in a tongue-in-cheek way and not actually feeling it or believing it. So the trick is to actually believe it and
That's
believe
right.
my own hype in a way, and just be confident in myself. But it took me until halfway through the second Atlantic row, I was just running away from life. I'd already done it once, so I didn't need to prove it to anyone. But I felt no one would take me, because I really wanted to get into this sort of adventure life, coaching, helping other people. And I didn't feel worthy to help anyone else until I'd done it again. Well, loads of people have done it once. I'll have to do it. Halfway through, I was like, you're an idiot. Just, all right, you can't get off now. You got to finish it. But you are enough. You don't need to keep doing this stuff to prove to people, to anyone. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Do it for the enjoyment. And so it's different now. And my motivation is very different than it was when I first started doing these things. And I had a different motivation. I started off, it was about me, and it was about about showing off and trying to maybe get some self-worth. Then it became very much about raising money for Sophie, my wife, who was diagnosed with MS. And it was just, I had a cause, I had a reason. And that made things very simple to hang it on. I could hang everything on that. So it's not necessary. I didn't look at any motivation rather than that. I would hang it on that. And that meant a lot to me, and obviously still does. But then it became Ted the fundraiser, and it's kind of labels and things that I also, they're not particularly helpful, because actually in the rawness of it all is, I bloody love being out there in the desert or in the ice and feeling like a cowboy. I'm just a kid who kids go out and they go up the garden and they have an imagination and they use sticks, and that's what I am, and I love it, and I want other people to experience that. It's that simple. That's what I get from adventure. Yes, there was a long road and there's a long story that got me there, and I've just blurbed on for hours just talking about what took me there. But it took me a long time to realize, and I'm a slow learner, like I was told at school. I was very, we all listen to this messaging and we all listen to all these things.
So powerful.
And I probably should have had, years and years of therapy, and I didn't, and I'm still resistant to therapy, but I do take myself off and do look at myself. And I did the Hoffman process, and and I'm a Wim Hof instructor, nothing to do with the Hoffman process, but I've done things. I've looked at myself and I learn each time, and there's still more to learn. This is a big learning adventure in itself. Self-discovery, a journey of self-discovery, the Ted Jackson.
Yeah. And it's never ending, right? I mean,
you're never going to get
mindset. It's never ending, right? You're constantly learning, hopefully constantly learning, constantly growing, constantly kind of pushing yourself. Looking in the cupboards, right? Just look at the cupboard,
Oh, don't. I'm a bad cupboard looker at it. I'm the fridge man. I just keep going, no, still the same stuff in there. I'm a snacker. But yeah, we are constantly learning. And if we weren't constantly learning or developing and growing, where would we? I wouldn't know what to do. That's a bad place for me. As I said, there's a danger I can get into that. I think as humans, my comfortable place is actually in an uncomfortable place. I'm in an uncomfortable place protecting myself from harm. And I protect myself from harm by not putting myself out there, by not being the person I probably could, should, want to be, whatever, all those ridiculous words. The safe place is to roll up in a ball and, as a human, is not go out and put yourself in the danger of being eaten by a lion. So that's what I am prone to do. That's when I put on the dressing gown of shame at home and wander around the house in a dark place. Less and less dressing gown is well and truly stored away at the moment, but I learned that it exists.
Yeah. And those things can come back, right? I mean, they're not gone forever, right?
I thought I'd nailed it.
Yeah.
I mean, the minute I think I've nailed it, then I know I'm probably in a bad place, because then where's the fun? Where's the adventure? You've got to keep driving. I have a very different strive now than I maybe thought I would have had when I was younger. I was all about more money, more power, more status. And now it's much more about more life, more living, more just give me experience. So let me experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So that kind of leads nicely into what we were talking about before I kind of hit record, is like this sense, right, of adventure, experience, exploring. I just think, I think it's actually so vital for human beings. And I think that, you know, I don't see that much. I don't really see that spirit much. I just, you are completely an adventurer. You're out there, you're, doing all the things. What do you think about that? Do you think it's something we're losing? Is that unfortunate? Tell me more.
I'm very, very, very lucky. I made it my job. I never thought it could be my job, but I kind of just reached out to my boss, Oliver at Runbuck, and said, I understand you have a company that organizes the North Pole Marathon, the 7 marathons, 7 continents, 7 days, Aurora Marathon, Antarctica, Antarctic Ice Marathon, all these crazy events, which I actually done, and I knew that he had newly acquired this company, and I thought, I'm going to get hold of him and say that he needs me. And I did. I Facebook messaged him and said, I've done all these events and I like people and you need me and I'd love to come and help. And he said, I do. And please do. And so I did. And I kind of now get to share those adventures with like-minded people who've taken that step, people who've thought, because I know how people feel. You look at something and you go, oh, there's the North Pole Marathon. No one could ever do a marathon at the North Pole. I could never do that. And then there's other people who go, what? What's that? I used to get caught by my wife, Sophie. She'd come in the room and I'd slam the laptop down. And she goes, what are you looking at? Knowing full well that it was not going to be what you think. It's going to be an Atlantic row or a North Pole Marathon. Or
the next adventure.
Adventure. And all of them seemed out of reach. Yeah, every single one of these at some point for me was totally out of reach and was never going to happen. When I went to row the Atlantic, I thought, when I finally got out there on the Atlantic, I thought just before, I'll go back in my emails and see when this first came up as an idea. And I'd sent an email to a chap called Josh way back, 10 years previously, just inquiring about it. But I'd done that. I'd set something in motion and I'd sent an email and I'd taken some action that set a wheel in motion somewhere, cogging and whirring, that it was always there. And it then became an itch that had to be scratched. And it happened. And these people, there are a lot of people out there who are looking for adventure. Look at running a marathon is an adventure. Doing the London Marathon. For many people, doing the Windsor Half Marathon is an adventure. And I applaud anyone that does anything. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's not doing nothing. And if they're going to get people, I love it. I want to whoop and cheer when I see something. Yeah. I'm probably, I'm made because it's not acceptable now to toot your horn at runners when they're on the road. But all I want to do is cheer them and say, good on you. Well done. You're out there. You're pounding the streets. You're doing something. And I know how it feels. I've pounded the streets in the rain and the snow and the sleet and the hail. And I know it feels good, even though the thought of it sometimes feels horrendous. The hardest thing to do is to put those bloody shoes on and get ready and get out the door. Because when I'm out the door, nothing could get me back in. And if we can make these adventures are highly accessible for people. Now, there's going to be a lot of haters out there. Oh, you've got to have lots of money to do it. And, lots of things in life do take a bit of money. But as I said, our events, our premium events, to get to the top of the world, to get to the North Pole, is a no mean feat. It's not easy to get there. If it was easy, more people would be doing it. But there are a lot of people I meet and the people we meet on our events who are not multimillionaires, and they are not people. They are teachers, and they are they're not people who've got massive salaries. There are people who found a way. There are people who are raising money for charity. They've managed to they've found sponsors. They've been nice to people. They've been kind to people. They've buttered people up. They've done what they've had to do in order to get this. I've had people from the military who really don't have the money, but they've done so. They've sacrificed to do it. And boy, have they got the most out of it when they've done it. I mean, no one who's done any of these events walks away from it going, oh, I wish I hadn't really done that. That doesn't happen. These are life-changing experiences for people. And they think it's going to be the pinnacle of their life. It isn't. They're life-changing, but it's not the end. It's the beginning for many of them. Many of them start with some crazy thing, and it's like, what next? And I get a lot of what next. And it's just my next adventure is the next big adventure. It doesn't have to be doing a load of ultra marathons. It could be the fact that I just want to get into doing saunas or ice bathing or whatever it might be, and doing it, taking the plunge. Because I find that difficult. I think all humans, I don't think it's an easy thing. People, if it's easy, is it really worth doing? For me, I can do the easy stuff as on a daily basis. That's not going to help me grow. But if I have to put myself out there and do something a bit tough, then that's where I find the gold.
Tough and also uncomfortable, right? You got to push through that discomfort.
And discomfort doesn't have
So
to be,
important.
it certainly doesn't have to be physical. Just so happens that in general, the things that I work on and the events we do are physical events, but they're also mental. I mean, getting onto a cargo plane, that looks like it was built last century, and it's got cables and tubes everywhere, and you can't hear anyone because it's early, and you're going to be landing on a blue ice runway in the middle of Antarctica, or you're going to be landing a plane at the North Pole, or you're going to be on an icebreaker that's going through 2-meter thick ice at the North Pole. And what happens if there's polar bears, and what happens if there's a lot of stress related in there. I'm a big fan of putting myself under stress. I like self-chosen stress or whatever. There's probably some excellent phrase that people use that means that. But putting myself under duress and under hardship is my way of getting through life and making me more resilient, I suppose. I mean, I probably am a really, really resilient person. Simply because I've done stuff. I do stuff that scares me. And I know that's a bit cliche, but do stuff that scares you, and that is resilience. That's how you build resilience. You can't be resilient until you've had a bit. It's a bit like you can't become immune to something until you have a little bit of it. Don't become resilient to iocane powder unless you Princess Bride. You've got to build up your tolerance. So I have a tolerance for those scary things, and the people we meet. I keep going back to the people are amazing. So these adventurers, there's a lot of people. I could take 60 people at a time on these adventures, and the camaraderie, the banter, the humor, the stories, the people's. Everyone's got a reason, everyone's got a story, and they are hugely diverse, wide, and you find out people open their hearts, and they become raw. And you become, you really get down to the tough stuff, and they discover themselves. And watching that happen for me is a real privilege to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I get to do that. I get paid to do this. Yeah. Because I took a plunge and I walked away from my relatively well-paid, safe family business, which I found very difficult. That was, for me, was my biggest adventure of my life, is walking away from that. I would say that was the toughest, hardest thing I've done, and that was in the last 4 or 5 years. And doing that was, thinking, but I need to provide. I must provide for my family. And then walking away from a salary and what have you, to think, how's this going to work, was terrifying for me. Absolutely terrifying. And if you ask me what your dream job was and write down the exact characteristics of, it's the job I do now. You can't be happier than that.
That's really beautiful. Yeah. So I'm just going to invite just to take a breath for a moment. Just take a breath and just like, what are you feeling? What's coming up? Just curious. What's happening in the body? It's so much. I know.
It's weird. I don't take a lot of time to take the breath. Strangely, I've worked in breath work. I'm a breath work teacher. But as you say that, when you say that to me, what's going on for you now? And I say, I'm just full of joy. I am really full of joy, and I'm very thankful. Really thankful for what I have. And I have to be careful because I also I'm English and I don't want to cry. But I do get very emotional when I think about, it doesn't take much, the journey,
Moment.
Mm.
And I'm really resonating, right? This is just a teaching for you. I'm really connecting and resonating with the joy and the gratitude and where you are right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have an enormous amount of, I am very grateful and proud of myself, because I think that is something that is difficult for people to feel. But I say that probably because it's difficult for me to feel. I'm sure a lot of people can feel proud, but for me, it was something that I think I was striving for and strove for many of those early events. And, whether that be needing the recognition of my family, whatever, who I needed to, who did I need to impress? Who did I need to love me? And it's taken me 52 years, or I'm 53 very soon, nearly 50 years, to acknowledge a love for myself and be proud of myself, I think, which does get me emotional, which I am emotional about, because I suppose there's probably a certain amount of sadness that thinks, why the fuck didn't I find it earlier? But then again, if I had, I wouldn't have had the journey, so I don't think it is that. I think there is that kind of, the emotion for me bubbles up when I take stock and when I feel proud of myself. I think it's, again, I come back to, I think, and you're spot on, take a minute, don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah, feel it.
Just notice that, right? Notice how that feels for a moment. Let it soak it up.
I love how it feels
Mhm.
because it fills me. I feel full.
Yeah. And it's that elixir, right? For that not good enough crap, right? It's like that. You want that, not and all that not good enough crap. It's just like
And
in the background.
It's non-stop.
Oh,
And it's very, as we have pointed out and said, no, this is not nothing set in stone, and it's transient and it comes and goes. And I'm not fixed. Or not that I'm broken to be fixed, but I haven't got, we can't live our lives on that. I can't live my life on that level of Zen or being proud of myself, because then I'm sitting and rest. I can enjoy it. I'm happy. I thank you for the opportunity to notice it. But what next? Because
and then it's onward. And it's onward, right?
It's onwards and upwards. Onwards and upwards.
That's right. Looking for the next peak. What's the next peak?
And you talked about, maybe there's not enough adventure in life. And I fully agree with you. I think people could access. I look around and I think, I'm really living here. And the people that come on my events are living. These people are pushing the boundaries, their boundaries, whatever those boundaries have been. And the people that are out there running the streets, and the people that are out there, I don't know, mowing the lawns or doing whatever job it is they do. But there are some people whose whatever they do in life can be tough, and everyone's fighting their own battle. But putting yourself out on some kind of different adventure is, I find, so wholesome. And I hadn't even considered, kids going into the garden and going into another world is amazing. Just going up, hiding behind trees and jumping, and whatever it might be. There's something so wholesome about that, but so real. And so where's that for us? I'd never really ridden a horse before until I got I was lucky enough to get on a polo pony, and I had a few polo lessons. Now I'm not really into the whole polo scene, but boy, getting on the back of one of those horses, which are so hyper well trained, and just go like that, and it goes forward, go like that, it goes left and right. So I didn't really need horse riding skills, but suddenly I was a cowboy. And and I'm riding along, and you're one-handed, and you're swinging this mallet, and I'm singing in my head, and I ride motorbikes, and it's the same. There's a freedom. I am just a big kid, and maybe people need to find their child and go back to the adventure of being a child, because we can find it anywhere. You don't have to do the big, big, big thing.
Mm.
There's a lot of unexplored country out there. I know that you're living in America now, and I know that there's some kind of stat about the number of Americans that don't actually ever leave America and they just stay. I'm not surprised. It's a big place and it has everything. You can go on an adventure in your backyard. I could go on an adventure here. I like go and get lost somewhere. That's an adventure. Go without a map to your local
Yes.
town and see things and look up. Move away from that. It's very easy to say. I'm the master scroller. I would never give advice where if I certainly don't think I've got any of this nailed. I'm a terrible, spend my head scrolling on Instagram, losing myself. Another drug. Here's just another drug. It's another battle. And it's another, these things are battles for me. It's like, okay, well, I'll deal with one at a time and I'll try and do the best I can. Not beat myself up too much. Be proud of what I do. Be proud. Oh, there you go. North Park Marathon. There we go. And it's about all I wear is this t-shirt, these t-shirts. But, event t-shirts are quite useful because we always overorder. So I never have to go shopping. Yeah.
So I love what you said right there that, that these adventures don't have to be these big grand things. It could be getting out, exploring your local park, trying to find your way somewhere without a map, just using your instinct and your gut and just, having a food. Having a food that you haven't had before, a new restaurant, right?
A lot of people that won't do that because they've told themselves a story all their lives that they don't eat tomato, or whatever it might be. So they won't try something. And, just surprise yourself. Do something like that. What's the worst that can happen? Is a question I ask myself a lot. What is the worst thing that can happen if I step into this? I did it yesterday. I turned off the sat nav. I moved to a new area. And I thought, I wonder where this road's going to take me. Where does this end up? And I'm going to stay on it. I will not veer to left or right, where I know if I go left, it's probably going to take me nearer home. I just want to see where this ends up.
Love that.
Just because I could. And I loved it.
Love that.
But what was the worst that could happen is that I ended up getting lost and I'd have to stop and ask someone, or I could turn my phone on and put Waze on or whatever it might be. And that was yesterday's little mini adventure. And it was great.
Yeah. Love that. So tons of tips and strategies for people, right? That, maybe a little bored or been on the couch or just got an itch, but they're not quite sure what those next steps are. It's great places to start. Anything else you might add to that?
I just think just doing stuff. I know it's so simple and we overhear it maybe, and maybe people, maybe because we hear it so much, people don't do it. I don't know what that is, but I mean, Nike had it sorted when they said just do it, because thinking about it, I don't know whether it just needs you can spend a lot of time in your head thinking about what you're going to do, and I'm just thinking about it, and I'm thinking about doing this. Well, great, everyone can think about it. You're not going to do it until you actually do it, or you say I'm doing it. So change how you speak to yourself. For me, is a game-changing thing. I notice the words I say to myself. And I think about, is there another way of saying that? So if I actually take notice of the chatter that's going on in my brain, and then I change what I say. And quite often because I quite often call myself a fucking idiot or whatever. And then I say, actually, don't speak to yourself like that. Because if you speak to yourself like that, so just change that, half serious, half not with that. But changing the words I use, especially when I hear people talking about, I'm thinking of doing this. And I'm a pain in the ass for people because I pick them up on it. And I say, thinking about it's great. You're never going to do it unless you do it. So how long are you going to think about it for?
Yeah. So the switch might be like, if we got super clear about that, I'm going to, or I will, or I am. I am.
Yeah, I am. Be it. I am doing this. I'm not going to. Not I should. Certainly not I should. We all know about the should word, and it's great. Should. I'm thinking. I mean, even I'm thinking about doing something, but I'm doing it. Or I always used to find that when I gave up smoking, it was like I am I'm not a smoker. You know, do you want a cigarette? Oh, I'm giving up smoking. I've given up. Or no, I don't smoke. So be the thing. Again, I hear that a lot. But why do we hear it a lot? Because it's good advice.
It's true. Right. It's true. It's true. Yeah.
And quite often, I think everything is really simple, and I complicate, and humans complicate life so much. There is no difficult message. There is. I hate getting asked for what's your big advice or what's your piece of advice. Like, well, one, I don't feel worthy of giving advice. Look, I'm struggling through life like the rest of you. Two, I overcomplicate everything. Just do the thing. Don't be scared. Make the bloody phone call, especially if it's a difficult one. Do it now. Don't wait till next week, because all that's going to do is build it up into a big, horrible thing that won't end up how you think it's going to end up.
Yeah, because you won't do it. Right. You
Do the
won't do
bloody thing, or you'll do it in a weird way. A bit like I was saying before the call here. I can't prepare for a podcast. I don't want to try and prepare some nuggets of wisdom, because they don't come from me. They'll come from me looking it up on the internet and looking for someone else's nugget of wisdom. I can only tell you what comes from here, and and as you said, how do you feel? What am I feeling? And what do I do? I can just tell people what I do and how I feel. You can either take it or leave it. It's not my problem.
That's lovely.
Yeah. Come and join me on it. It will change your life. You know,
Yeah, I
simple as that.
really believe that. I think any adventure is going to change your life. When you push it, whether it's backpacking, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Any adventure, it's when you have to push, when it has to be uncomfortable, where you have to get yourself out of the comfort zone, it will change your life.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have, as I said, it doesn't have to be physical. It could be doing another degree, or a degree if you never did one, or some adult learning, or whatever. It could be anything. It has to be something that you don't find easy, I think. You know, if you find it easy, that's not the challenge. That's something you enjoy, and we all enjoy doing stuff.
Yeah.
But where's the challenge?
Beautiful. Yeah.
Because we don't have to go and fight lions and tigers and bears anymore. Or a lot of us luckily don't. There are some people out there who, look, they've got enough challenges in their life. They don't need to go out and find their own challenges. Life is throwing enough shit at them for them to have to deal with. And I, again, hugely grateful that I'm in a position where we get to choose to take on challenges, right? That's super privileged. I understand that. I see that, and I'm thankful. I'm not going to feel guilty about it, but it is the case.
Well, I actually really needed to hear that today. So thank you. I was a little grumbly this morning in my head. I don't know why, but I really do have a very fortunate, blessed life, full of kind of adventure and own business. And you know what I mean? I'm not working in a cubicle. And so thank you. Really needed today. Thank you. So Ted, is there anything else you want to share before we kind of wrap up? And
as I said, I'm not a big one for going, the big pearly nuggets of wisdom and leaving you with one word of advice for life. Honestly, we've been there. We've touched on it. Don't be afraid to, don't be afraid to get vulnerable. I tear up pretty quickly, but I also fight it. I still, I got teased enough for crying when I was because I was the baby of the family. So there's a sort of shame around that probably. But yeah, be vulnerable, be open to people, tell people what scares you, because then you'll open up doors. You're going to open up stuff in life that, I just try not to be a dick. Oh yeah, there was one thing. I knew it would come to me. Yeah, don't be a dick is always good advice. I don't know. Obviously, I give that advice to my children more than I take it myself. But my wife, Sophie, always says to me, she said, whenever I go on a new course or something like that, or if I'm taking a group to Antarctica or whatever, and we'll speak on the phone, and she'll say, how is it? And I go, yeah, it's great. There's not even one person in the room is a dick. And she goes, that's a dangerous time, because it might be you. So just be careful. If you can't find the dick in the room, just check yourself and check it's not you. And I have to be very careful of that, because I am unfiltered and can unintentionally overstep the mark and maybe rub people up the wrong way. But I can't not be me. That's the thing. So I try not to be. I've got no intention to upset anyone, but it can happen. It's been known.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Thank you so much for your time today and just your generosity and your openness. It's really been lovely. I really appreciate
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. So where can people find you if they want to check you out, check out your adventures? Where can people find you, Ted?
Where can people find me? You can find me personally on Instagram, I suppose, at I know Ted Jackson, at I know Ted Jackson. I mean, I would urge people to go and have a look at other websites like the North Pole Marathon. Google the North Pole Marathon or look up runbuck.org. That's RUNBUK, because that's the company that organizes, I think, the best adventures in the world. And find a way. Tell someone you're going to do it. Tell them you're doing it. And then find a way of doing it. But yeah, at NP Marathon, I think, for Instagram. And any one of those events, once you get to the website for it, all the other ones are listed at the bottom. So if you find the North Pole Marathon, just go to the bottom of the page and it'll lead you to the World Marathon Challenge or the 777 or Antarctic Ice Marathon. So yeah.
I'll be sure.
I don't know how much benefit people will get from going to at I know Ted Jackson. That's normally me doing some house renovation.
Okay.
But it'd be fun. I mean, you can see my interesting little
Yeah,
life.
and you'll see that great photo, right?
Yes, yeah, you get to see the ice king.
You'll
Yeah,
just
that's
see
at the North Pole in minus 40 degrees, I think.
Can't even imagine. That's wild. It's a great photo to go check it out. I will definitely put those links in the show notes, especially the runbuck.org.
I think it is. We better double check.
Yeah. Well, if it's not, just send me that link and I'll put it in the note. So, wow, thank you. Just such a powerful conversation. I appreciate you. And I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on your next adventure.
Well, thank you very much.
You are welcome. Thank you so much for listening today. I really appreciate you and your time. Remember that I do love to hear from listeners, so connect with me at katechampionauthor.com. Grab your free hiking guide, share your favorite episode with a friend, and subscribe to the show. Until next time. Hey, me again. Just a reminder, this podcast should not be considered professional advice. It's also not a substitute for mental, physical, or any other healthcare-related treatment. For any questions about your condition and/or concerns, please contact a fully licensed healthcare professional. Thank you.